Good evening everyone, this is HE for Oak Forest Audio. I want to welcome you guys to a headphone review for the Hifiman HE6 SE. This is their special edition relaunch of the classic HE6 headphone. I also want to thank Hifiman for their patience. It's taken me a little bit of time to review this, but I wanted to be thorough and make sure that I explored as many avenues as possible to figuring out my thoughts on this headphone, as well as being able to review it. So part of this review is going to feature a slight unboxing. I do want to show off the product in the nice box it ships with, but I do want to talk about comparisons. I want to compare it to some lower ended models that are very aggressive in terms of how they're priced, as well as some higher priced models that are again aggressive in how they perform and their overall pricing relative to everything else. So let's dive right into it. The headphone ships with like a leatherette, so it does feel pretty sturdy, a nice velvety satin inlay. Take a look at the headphone itself. They're nice. I mean, I'm not in love with the new head fan, but it's solid. I mean, the action is acceptable. You know, the adjusters aren't super solid, but they don't really slip. I mean, overall, it feels okay. It definitely feels a bit more sturdy than the classic style headband or the very older legacy style headband. Classic is going to be this guy. Right, this is my V1 Hifiman HE 560. V1 HE 560. So this has that first revision that they did, and then the previous Hifiman headband, as you may remember, was just a single band, kind of like what's on the HD 800, but not as nice. So Hifiman has moved to a suspension similar to what Odyssey is doing, and then refined, of course, the design for what they'd already done. What's also cool is the cables are actually tucked away in this little box. It comes with both the balanced cable as well as an adapter for it, which is a nice accessory. Everything you need really all in one box. Overall, I find the Hifiman HE60 to be more focused on tonality and timbre. It does have an acceptable soundstage. It is imaging is a bit more open than the 600. It is maybe on par or a bit behind the HE 560. It's definitely not on par with the HD 800, and I would say that it is comparable to the LCD-X. In terms of tonality, it has a lot of the aggression that we associate with Hifiman, but with a slightly thicker, more harmonically rich presentation in terms of the envelope. So there is that little bit of emphasis on the attack, which is typical for Hifiman cans, I find, but also a touch of, not to say emphasis so much on the decay, but the decay and release do feel a bit exaggerated, and then the sustain is sometimes a little bit lacking. But it is what I would consider maybe a more musical sounding headphone. Now, my problem, right? So I spoke about how I felt the Mr. Speaker's Ether 2 was what musical should be. Well, Hifiman's take on musical seems kind of lackluster. So while, again, the presentation is a little bit more harmonically rich, a little bit more focused on tonality and timbre, there are problems with the frequency response. I feel the bass is, while powerful, taut, it is a bit too forward. It does stand out overly so, right? It feels not so much emphasized in terms of a hump, but it's just too forward. It's too loud in comparison to other frequencies. The mid-range is very weird. When listening to vocals or flutes, it has a really nice, warm, rich tone. But when listening to horns and then male vocalists and guitars, it sounds very uneven, almost wobbly, as another member of the community described it. So for some instruments, some vocalists, it has that really beautiful, rich tonality, but for others, it's very obvious how uneven it is. And then the top end is just simply emphasized, overemphasized. The HD 800 is another headphone that has some emphasis up top, but with the SDR mod, I don't feel the HD 800 is as intrusive as the HE6 SE. I mean, overall, it's, for me, for $1,800, I don't really feel that the value is here for the headphone. It is more detailed than stuff like the HD 600 and the HE 560, but both of these headphones are much more tonally balanced, right? When you have a more even frequency response, you're able to perceive more detail. Now, if I fiddle with placement and pick out tracks and really look for the detail, right? Look for the length of reverb trails, right? How long a note is sustained as it falls into silence. If I look for those micro details or those transients, the driver, yes, is able to resolve those more so than the HD600 and HE560, but the tonal problems just make it difficult to appreciate. When I put on a headphone, I don't want to have to work to appreciate it. I don't want to have certain frequencies thrown in my face and others are subdued. Now, I don't feel that it's really, and it's different, but not really, I would say, better than the LCD-X, which is a 2019 revision, or the HD800 with SDR mod. These two are very different. Neither one of them has that, what I would consider harmonically rich presentation, but I feel that both present more richness in the harmonics overall. There are instances where the HE6SE is much more richer, sweeter, much more pleasing, but it's hit or miss. With the HD800, I have what I would consider the warmth that is associated with Sennheiser, but a lot of refinement and a very big, open, expansive soundstage. Flipping to the LCD-X, it is a bit dark. So whereas the 6SE and HD800 have some top-end emphasis, I do find the LCD-X to be fairly neutral. It doesn't come across to me as forward or even emphasized. I perceive it to be pretty neutral. And what I like about the LCD-X is it's not as rich as something like my Pre-Phaser 2 or the LCD2 Classic, but I do feel that it has a bit more refinement and just balance overall versus the LCD2F. So these two are a nice complement to each other. This brings that really nice, insane, low-end impact that we like from planar magnetics, with having a still deep but focused soundstage, right? Then the HD800 is entirely different. It's much more expansive. There's a sense of dynamics that's more apparent, and it has that kind of warmth and organic sound that I associate with Sennheiser. My point being is, these headphones, while different, I feel that both present a better value than the HE6SE. I feel that both are equally as resolving. In fact, I think the HD800 is really the most resolving of the three. But again, its tonal presentation may be troublesome to some of you. But still, the value is here. This is the headphone you can get new for $1,400, or you can buy it secondhand for under $1,000 with the SDR mod. The LCD-X is, again, it is, well, I mean, this, you can pick it up for like $1,100. Odyssey does a lot of specials. So in terms of price, they're just much more aggressively priced and much more competitive. Going back to the HE6SE, it just doesn't hold its value. Now, here's what I will say. Some of the folks online have suggested two things. Number one, that a pad swap would help to change the tonal balance, and they're probably right. My HE560 has alpha pads? No. These are the Brainwaves angled pads. These make it a little bit darker and really open up the soundstage. So while I do feel that there is potential in the driver, and while I do feel and I will agree that a pad swap may improve it, being that this is the stock headphone that I was sent, and being that it is a reissue of an existing headphone, I just don't see the value. You guys may remember when I did my review for the Hifiman HE4XX, the Masterop collaboration was released with different pads than what Hifiman puts as stock. So I would personally like to see a reissue like the 6SE have an option for pads, but Hifiman didn't send me any, and I don't have any spares. The pads on my 560 are stretched to fit it, and I don't want to take them off. So, again, overall, I really don't see the value in this headphone as an $1,800 product. I think there is some potential. I think if you're willing to mod, if you're willing to pad swap, maybe even cable roll, whatever. If you're willing to tinker with it, you can appreciate and really pull out that nice tonality and really just solid, powerful bass and the detail that's there, but there is some work to be had to get to it. And for me, I like things that are easier and more simplistic. I would rather recommend a current revision headphone that is quite balanced with the stock pads, or maybe maybe a different amp, whatever. Again, I feel that there's a lot less work to go into getting what you want from an HD800 or an LCD-X versus the HE6SE, which is going to require some modification, some pad rolling, some cable swapping, some system tweaks. I feel there's a lot of work that's going to have to come into getting this headphone to a level where it's competitive. And because it's not something that is more straightforward and something that I feel brings a lot of balance and resolve and value, it doesn't get my recommendation. Now, I will mention, amplification is something people are going to ask about. I did drive these with two amplifiers. My Project Ember, which now has not a linear power supply, but a noise nuke. Some additional filtration for the power on top of the PNG cable and all the other crazy stuff I use to power it. So I felt that the Ember 2 was more than sufficient. I'm using my RME 80i2 DAC, and I have a variety of gain options to help me have a little bit more volts coming in to give the amp a little bit more headroom. I also got to hear this with a 1st watt speaker amp, which I believe will do 10 watts into it. And even when I scaled it to more power, and I scaled it with, I think the system I was listening to was up in Tennessee. It was the 1st watt amplifier along with, I believe it was a Millionaire, which was acting as a preamp, and a Gumby, which was acting as a DAC. So we have what is known as a very thick and organic sounding DAC. We have a tube hybrid preamp feeding into a power amp. By the way, the 1st watt stuff is phenomenal. But even on that setup, I just didn't feel it was competitive. For me, I feel like if you're going to spend $1,800 and you want a headphone that gives you amazing detail but with a slight focus on tonality, then Mr. Speaker's Ether 2 is the better option. I've heard the Ether 2 now 4 times, and I really like it. And I do believe that actually Dan of Mr. Speakers does have an option of pads that he can send you. So he has different pads that will change how his headphone sounds, and I believe that they're available. Whereas with Hifiman, it was difficult for me to get additional pads without having to shop with another brand or manufacturer. So again, overall, if you want a musical headphone, the Ether 2 is probably going to be your best bet, especially at the price point of like, what, close to $2,000. If you want just a good headphone overall, the HG800 and LCDX are 2 good options. There's some differences there, but either way, again, the Hifiman HE6 SE doesn't get my recommendation. It has too many flaws for me to overlook, and it doesn't bring a strong value into the market. So I don't think it's really worthwhile unless you have money to throw away and you have time to tinker with it. As always, guys, thank you for watching the video. Please leave your comments and questions below. I do want to thank Hifiman for sending me the headphone. Hopefully the next one I hear maybe is more impressive and brings a stronger value. I have a rocky relationship with Hifiman because, again, I love my HE560. Now, I have gotten new pads for it, but I only paid $250. You know what I mean? I loved the HE4 that I had before. So I loved a lot of Hifiman products. I like the HE, I believe it's the V1000, no, the K1000 version 2 is, again, another great headphone that I like. And I think price-wise, I think that the 1000 V2 is maybe $1,000 more than this. I'm not going to say that that $1,000 is worth it, but I think the secondhand value of that headphone does make it even a better option, a stronger contender versus HE6 SE. Again, overall, I don't recommend the headphone. I don't feel the value is there. So again, guys, have an awesome night. Thank you for watching.